Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to Atmanexus, episode 3. And there's no host, there's no guest, just two friends sitting together exploring a question that has followed humanity for centuries. A question that perhaps has followed every one of us. And the question is, when life asks us to choose a direction, who do we listen to? The mind or the heart? There's a beautiful quote that has stayed with me for years. The mind knows no answers and the heart knows no questions. Every time I hear it, I just pause. And Jude reminded me of this statement just yesterday. So, because on the surface, it sounds quite poetic, but the deeper you go into it, the more mysterious it becomes. So, to explore this mystery, I am joined by my dear friend Jude again. So, welcome, Jude. And I want to give you a brief introduction of our friendship today. We studied yoga together, we've shared meals, and we shared silence. We visited beach together, and we have spent a lot of time discussing various topics related to spirituality, mind, body, soul. And somewhere along the way, our conversations became less about exchanging ideas and more about exploring life itself. So, welcome, Jude.
Thank you, Scott.
So, it's always a pleasure to sit with you and have these conversations. And I think the best conversations happen when neither of us tries to teach. We simply try to understand. And let's begin our today's topic of discussion. And Jude, I noticed something. Whenever people face an important decision, they often say things like, my mind says one thing, but my heart says another. And almost as if there are two different intelligences operating within us. And before we go anywhere else, perhaps we should understand what we mean by these words. So, when you hear the words mind and heart, what do they mean to you?
Yes, a very good introduction and nice to be here with everybody. Mind and heart. To me, for the context of this conversation, the mind is effectively thoughts. Thoughts that appear as a result of our conditioning, and all of our lived experiences are what construct and form our mind. And the heart, to me, in the context of this conversation, is feeling, is intuition, joy, bliss. When you get an internal pull within you, either towards somebody or something, and there's no words to explain it, that is the heart to me.
That's beautiful. I completely resonate with you because if we talk about mind, it deals with certainty. And if we talk about heart, it deals with the comfort, but with mystery. So, because if you think about it, the mind wants guarantee always. And if I talk about heart, heart generally wants meaning. The mind asks, will this work? The heart asks, does this feel true? And it generally backs you. It gives you an emotional strength that somewhere it will work.
Yes, I see some truth in that. You feel the emotion behind it is energy, even though you have no certainty or reason to believe that whatever you're choosing will work or is the right path. If the heart yearns for it, there will be energy behind it, even if on the surface it looks crazy or illogical, whatever the situation or decision may be.
Yes. And maybe perhaps that's why they often seem to be in conflict. Although the conflict isn't the right word, maybe they're simply speaking different languages.
Yes, but I think it can certainly feel like an internal conflict. When you have these multiple different voices or different forces that feel like are conflicted within ourselves. And I was reading a book yesterday, and part of this book made me think of you and this conversation. And one of the quotes from the book was, "The mind is Maya." And I think that's a really nice thing to include in this conversation and inquiry, like that the mind is a part of the world of form, that the mind is illusion.
I still need to dig deeper into this because I don't completely feel that mind is Maya, because we can use mind to unveil it and meet the higher consciousness or experience that.
When we access higher consciousness, are we accessing it through the mind, or is the mind just helping us get there?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Mind is just a pathway. It's just a bridge, but I can't solely term it as Maya. We can discuss it more and more. I would like to dig deeper into this, and maybe that's why so much of confusion arises, because we have become fluent in the language of the mind, but forgotten the language of the heart. If we see, schools teach us how to think, society teaches us how to achieve, but very few people teach us how to listen. And that's what makes me wonder, why does the mind seem so restless? Why is it constantly searching for answers?
I think you make a very good point. And what I see in my own life journey is that a lot of the spiritual journey is identifying less with the mind and reconnecting with our internal compass, our intuition, our connection to higher consciousness. I see that transition from being identified and listening to the mind to being able to follow our heart, to be able to follow our intuition, to be connected and act in alignment with higher consciousness. That is a huge part of the spiritual transformation.
That's something deeply, deeply profound. The mind seems to live in either yesterday or tomorrow, regretting, comparing, planning, predicting, rarely here and rarely now. I once heard someone describe the mind as a brilliant servant, but a terrible master. And honestly, I laughed when I heard this. So, what's your take on this?
A brilliant servant, but a terrible master. I think it's inherently linked to the idea that heaven and hell are here on earth. And if we are identified with our mind, we're living in hell. And the way to enlightenment, or the way to living in bliss, is to be free of your mind. Because when there is no mind, you just see and experience what is. And this is what everyone is chasing in all different forms, right? A yogi is chasing a state where their mind is calm and clear. People with addiction, say drug addiction or alcoholism, they're looking for peace. They're looking for that space where their mind goes quiet. Watching TV, the mind goes quiet, right? Playing extreme sports, running, people are doing it until the mind goes quiet. So many things in our lives and in society are about quietening the mind and opening the heart. It is just, there is no mass awareness of this, right? And that's what being on a conscious spiritual journey is about, is you are consciously working on this, quietening the mind and opening the heart, whereas most people are doing it to some degree, just unknowingly. Because people are seeking relief, people are seeking respite from their mind. They just have no awareness that what they are doing is to get respite and relief from the busyness and the constant chatter of their mind.
Exactly. While having this conversation, I feel my own mind often behaves like an unpaid intern running the entire company.
And that's very funny.
And yet, despite all its overthinking, the mind has achieved incredible things: science, technology, medicine. So this conversation isn't about making the mind a villain, because mind is actually a gift. So the question is whether it should be leading the journey or just supporting it.
Yeah. I heard what you said about the mind being a brilliant servant but a terrible master.
Right.
I think that
Yeah.
encapsulates what you just said really, really well. Maybe we can dig into that a bit more together.
Yes. Proceeding further, it brings me to something that, have you ever noticed that sometimes we already know something in our heart, but we spend months trying to convince our mind?
Yes.
So, have you ever faced any situation
Yes.
like this?
Many times. All right, I'll give you an example. It's quite a funny example. When I've been with girlfriends in the past, say I was with a girlfriend for 6 months, maybe after 4 months, my heart was not in the relationship and I knew I needed to end it, but it took that extra 2 months to convince my mind to do it. And I'm not proud of this, but this is honesty. I'm not perfect. I'm not claiming to be a perfect enlightened master.
I think most of the people listening this have experienced this somewhere in their life.
Yes. Or it's like quitting a job. Or starting, there may be a job that I really want to do. Or somebody I really want to go up and speak to them, but my mind will talk me out of it. My heart may see somebody and be like, I really want to meet that person. You get that burst of energy, but then the mind, the fearful mind, will stop me doing it. Or sometimes it will take 10 minutes to convince the mind that actually it's okay and we're going to do it anyway.
Right. Well, it's a very common experience with everyone. A relationship, a career decision, a move to a new city. Somewhere deep inside, they already knew, but they kept collecting evidence, looking for certainty, seeking permissions. And perhaps that's because certainty feels safer than trust.
But really, there is nothing certain and fixed in the whole universe. We can fool ourselves in our minds into the illusion that we have safety or stability or certainty, but really everything is changing in every moment, right? Our biochemistry is changing throughout this conversation. Some of our cells are dying and new cells are forming and regenerating within our bodies in every moment. That we can only have certainty in the mind, but really only once you go into the unknown can you really, I believe, and this is my opinion, only once you embrace the unknown can you really experience like the full spectrum, the full rainbow of life experiences. Because as long as you are identified with the mind and live as the mind, you are only open to experience what your mind will allow you to experience, which could be just a tiny fraction of the reality that is possible to you.
I once read somewhere the heart has its reasons, which reason knows nothing of. And maybe that's why the heart can be so difficult to explain. You can explain mathematics, you can explain strategy, but how do you explain knowing, Jude?
You can't, it often seems like there's no logic to it. You can't explain it. And I think that really points to the essence of what we're talking about.
Emotions can mislead us too. Do you agree with this, Jude?
Yes, certainly. Emotions can be very confusing, very misleading.
So, have you ever experienced something in your past that where your emotions misled you?
Yes, I think most days.
Yeah, right. People often fall in love with the wrong person. I won't say often, but they fall in love with wrong person at times. They make impulsive decisions. They mistake desire for wisdom. So, how do we know when it's the heart speaking and not simply emotions?
I think it can only be learnt by lived experience. And the more aware you become, the harder it is to lie to yourself. And it's like the more aware you become, the more you can see, the more self-aware you become. I can't give an answer to this question because I think it's for everybody to work out for themselves. I don't think it's possible to prescribe an answer or to convey an answer in words, because it can only be understood, I think, through lived experience.
Yes, and I completely agree with you on this because experience is something which leads us to better responses in future. And I think that's one of the most important distinctions of this entire conversation. Emotion is often reactive, the heart is responsive. Whereas if we see our emotions, they are generally loud, but the heart is quiet. So, if you have heard of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's first reaction was emotional confusion, and Krishna doesn't tell him blindly to blindly follow his feelings. Rather, he guides him towards deeper clarity, which tells me that wisdom is not choosing emotion over reason; it's discovering a deeper intelligence beneath both.
Yes. And maybe you have to experience the other two, thought and emotion, in order to get to that deeper knowing that is underneath.
Yes. And perhaps that deeper intelligence appears when mind and heart stop competing. Maybe life was never asking us to choose one over the other. And maybe life was asking us to bring them into harmony. The heart provides direction, whereas mind provides navigation. And if I say the heart, it always says this is meaningful. But the mind says, let's find a way. So they can easily work in synchronization.
Yes. And this conversation is not about demonizing the mind in any way. It is more just bringing in awareness to the distinction between the two. And if you are out of balance in either direction, if you are just purely identified with the mind, as an example, and you have no feeling, you have no access to feeling or emotion, you're only half of yin and yang, right? Or if you're only led by the heart, most people who are only led by the heart are like a scattergun. They're super unreliable and can never fully apply themselves to anything. They're like a leaf in the wind. Whereas I think that balance of head and heart coherence, there is something very beautiful in them working together in harmony as one system, and no conflict between the two.
But don't you feel people who use their heart too much and listen to their heart are very pure?
Yes. Yes.
I once read somewhere, who looks outside dreams and who looks inside awakens. Perhaps the mind helps us to understand the outer world, the heart helps us to discover the inner one. Neither is complete without the other. And before we conclude, I would like you and our listeners to understand something practical, because beautiful ideas are wonderful. But how do we actually hear the heart amidst the noise of modern life? Or what practices have helped everyone hear the quieter voice within themselves? How they have listened to their inner voice?
I think any practice which allows you to slow down, which removes external noise and distraction, are very good. Things like walking alone in nature, practicing yoga, tai chi, meditation, spending time sitting or laying down, just doing nothing, consuming nothing. We live in an age where we're bombarded with stimulus and information all of the time. And I think when we're consuming, we don't have the capacity to feel our feelings, to listen to our heart. So I think a huge amount of it is accessed through slowing down. Any practice which helps you slow down and be with yourself in silence.
I simply love that. My experience has been very similar. Meditation, yoga, silence, nature, meaningful conversations, they all help. And sometimes, strangely enough, heartbreak also helps. Because heartbreak has a way of stripping away illusions, bringing us face to face with what truly matters and what doesn't matter. Perhaps that is why so many spiritual traditions value silence, not because silence gives us answers, but because silence allows us to hear what was already there. Do you agree with me on this?
Silence allows us to hear what is within us and what is always there, but what can only be noticed and experienced in silence. Yes, I agree.
So, this brings us to the end of this podcast, and I would like you to conclude this conversation in few words.
The mind knows no answers. The heart knows no questions. In order to listen to your heart or be guided by your heart, first you have to have an awareness of what your mind is, and to start to see the separation, the distinctness of body, mind, and consciousness is an integral part of this whole conversation and listening to the heart. Because if you have no separation between you, the observer, you, the decision maker, and your mind, if you believe that you are your mind, you will just be a slave to your mind, right? Like you touched on earlier in this podcast, you have to know or experience that you are the master of your mind. Or maybe you will start to see, as you become more aware, that in so many areas of your life you are a slave to your mind and your mind is running the show. But starting to see the separation between you, the observer, and your mind is essential to being able to unpick the different forces and the different voices of guidance within us.
So beautifully concluded and explained. And as we bring this conversation to a close, I'm left with a feeling rather than a conclusion today. Maybe the mind and the heart were never enemies or something to be chosen from. Maybe they were dance partners, one asking, one knowing, one seeking, another trusting, one measuring, and the other one surrendering. And perhaps a meaningful life is not found in choosing between them, but in allowing them to walk together. The mind asks, the heart knows, and somewhere between the two, a human life unfolds. So, big thank you, my dear friend Jude. Thank you for taking out time and being part of soul to soul conversations with me.
Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you, Siddharth. It's been a very interesting conversation. And what you just shared at the end, I thought was very beautiful. And of course, this conversation is greatly linked to the episode 2 that we did together about nature, right? In nature, there are no enemies. In nature, everything is in harmony. And in nature, the whole circular nature of nature is based upon give and take, a self-sustaining ecosystem of give and take. And maybe there is some truth and similarity in the case of the mind and the heart and that relationship.
Yes, there is. So, my dear friends, if this conversation resonated with you, spend a few moments tonight in silence and ask yourself, what is my mind trying to figure out? And what does my heart already know? So, until next time, stay curious, stay conscious, and stay connected. This is Siddharth and Jude on Atmanexus. Thank you, everyone.